If you had heart problems and saw a cardiologist, well, everyone would be concerned about you, would know you're doing better, and it would be open and honest with the crew, anybody you work with.
Not weird.
But the most complicated organ in your body, if you have a problem with it, suddenly we don't want to talk about that? No, and you can get over it. And that's what people need to realize. You can be cured. You can get past it. That's what we need to realize.
If you have depression, if you have anxiety, if you have post-traumatic stress disorder, if you have any kind of mental health condition, it's nothing to be ashamed of, and it's nothing to hide, and it's something to hit head on with. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having a mental health issue, either with yourself or with somebody that you love.
You know, if you're going through a divorce right now, if you're going through a financial problem right now, if you're going through an illness right now, if you are going through any form of crisis right now. And so I want to share with you, you know, I've gone through a divorce, and I've gone through some very painful times. And during those times, they were messy. And during those times, I got off my game at times. And during those times, I was confused. But more than anything else, during those times, I felt pain. The worst thing you can do is what society suggests that you do. Escape, get busy, forget about it, lose yourself in work. Of course you have to work. Of course you have to show up. Your team needs you. Life needs you. Your family needs you. Life is for the living. I got it. But I don't believe that the answer to get through your pain is to escape in your pain. And too many people do that. And I've read the books that say to do that. You can't motivate yourself out of heartbreak. You've got to feel yourself through the heartbreak. I mean, I think it's that old Alanis Morissette song. The quickest way out is in. There are gifts in pain. There is glory in pain. That's how you develop the bravery. That's how you develop the humanity.
Good evening, Chosen. Are you glad to be here tonight? In the absence of our lead pastor, Unique Mackey, who has done a phenomenal series beginning this month, or really beginning this year, on good health. We've been talking about how to care for our bodies. And during the month of February, due to a variety of sad and heartbreaking events in our area, we began to focus on mental health, behavioral health. And we become aware in dealing with this series how pertinent and how important it is for our church community and for the community around us. Lots of lives have been saved throughout this series. Go and give God some praise for that. You ought to praise him even more. Because before the night is over, you're going to understand that there is an enemy that's against us and does not want us to succeed. But series like this, practical series, helps us to latch hold to a God of hope. And so we're concluding this series with part 4, holding on to hope. And tonight I am bookmarked by 2 young ladies who are part of the Chosen community. I think you all know Danny to my left. Danny serves in our youth ministries and is a phenomenal instructor and role model for our young people. But she is also a behavioral health advocate, a mental health advocate. And today, Danny will be entertaining questions as they relate to her experience and the experiences she's had supporting those who have been facing all sorts of mental health challenges. And then to my right, Ashley. Give her a hand, yes. Ashley is in her final year of studies to become a professional counselor and has lined up her practicum experience in the aftermath of finishing her coursework. And Ashley is going to share from her experience, from her life experiences, the kinds of things that have helped her push through and become a stronger young lady to accomplish God's purpose for her life. Before we begin, before we take the first question, I want you to say this with me. Say, God has a purpose for my life. And I'm not going to let anything or anyone stop me from fulfilling that purpose. You hold on to your hope. Don't you let your hope go. Let's get to the first question. And Danny, I'm gonna ask this first question to you. And by the way, before I begin, there will be a number on the screen later where you can, there it is, where you can ask a question. If you have a question, you can anonymously ask a question. If you text your question to that number, it will come to me, and then we will ask one of our panelists to respond to your question. So if something bubbles up inside of you as we're going through tonight's panel discussion, or if something has bubbled up in you over this series, we'd love to have an opportunity to answer those questions for you. And so if we'll go now to the first question, Danny, if you wouldn't mind speaking to this, what is your personal experience with depression, and how have you found success in dealing with this massive issue?
Okay, you're just gonna put me on the spot. All right. So my personal experience with depression and also suicide stemmed from when I was in 7th grade. I don't think that, and I tell people it wasn't like a traumatic event that I had. Maybe something triggered it. And my personal experience is it is chemical. You know, you have either a chemical imbalance or you have an experience that just pushes you into depression or suicide ideation. Mine is definitely chemical. And for a long time, about from 7th grade up until I was 21 in Kuwait, I am a vet, I just completely broke down. And that's when I actually was like, you know what? This is going too far. I really don't want to die. So I reached out for help, and from there, that's when my journey of coping with depression started. Let's see, it says, how have you found success? Success, one, acknowledging what was going on. I always knew what was going on, but there was a fear that I had within me about actually coming out and telling people, like, listen, I'm depressed. I've tried to kill myself plenty of times, and that's embarrassing. It can be embarrassing. You have guilt about it. You have shame about it. But at some point, you have to get help. You get to a point. My point was literally rock bottom, and I'm talking about the layer below, the lowest layer of the earth. I was there, and I had nowhere to go except to ask for help. So
I want you to recognize in Annie's response that from a young age, this began to happen. And I don't want you to think that something's wrong with you or that it's uncommon. Depression or the negative feelings that we sometimes have is a part of how the devil attempts to attack us. One of the things Danny pointed out in her response is that initially she was hesitant to talk about it, but she pushed through and she began to share. And silence is one of the biggest issues. Trying to go through something by yourself is a big issue. And it's important for us to go through life with partners, people who can help us in that particular process. Let's go to our next question, if we would. And I'm going to pose this question to you, Ashley, if I might. What role do you believe verbal expressions and acts of affection play in supporting our children's mental health and their well-being?
So I think verbal expressions is very important. Our kids need to know that we love them, that we want them, that they're important. A lot of times we see, I call it breaking generational curses, where you might not hear your mother or grandmother tell their kids that they love them all the time. It was something that I kind of experienced to a certain extent, and I wanted to break that when it came to my child. Right now, if I call 8 and 10 times, every 10 times we hang up the phone, you're going to hear I love you. If he walks in the room, he walks out that door, I'm going to tell him that I love him. I want him to understand that. And my parents love me. I'm not taking that away from them. But it's different when you hear it. A lot of times in school right now, a lot of these kids just want to be loved. You wouldn't imagine what it could do or how it could change a person's life just to hear those words, I love you. I tell my friends, my family, anybody that's important to me, I let them know, that I love them and how much I care about them. One thing also is, we tend to tell our kids, like, I'm proud of you, but you need to ask your kids, are you proud of yourself? You know what I'm saying? Don't have them thinking like they have to wait for somebody to be proud of them. They need to be proud of themselves. If nobody else is rooting for them, they need to root for themselves. When it comes to affection, so this is probably one of me. I didn't like to be touched on a lot. I probably wasn't touched on a lot, and I really didn't realize how important it was because, like I said, it did take away to how much my mom and dad loved me. But one day I remember Aiden was small and I grabbed him and he was just squirming to get out. And I was like, why he don't like this? And I realized it's because I don't hug him enough. It's because he's not used to getting that affection from me. And for him to be a male, right now, they have it against them where being affectionate is weak. It's important for us to show our males. I hug my son. I let him know, let's normalize hugging. I want him to love on his kids. I want him to love on his wife. I want him to know that being affectionate is not weak, but being affectionate is strong.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I think it's absolutely correct that we tend to shy away from showing and expressing acts of love and affection. But all of us need it, whether we admit it or not. We crave it, and particularly during COVID. I was standing outside as folk were coming in, and so you go to fist bump, and somebody goes to shake your hand, and then you switch to the fist bump while they're switching to shake hands, and then everybody, should I hug? Should I not hug? And we're actually losing forms of affection because of this thing called COVID. But we can always tell somebody how we feel about them. We can always tell somebody how important they are. I want you to think about this for a moment. You so dumb. You just like we're quick to criticize and we're quick to put people what? Down. But in order to build an individual's self-esteem, in order for a person to feel good about themselves, you have to plant seeds of love, seeds of encouragement, seeds of hope, rather than seeds of doubt. And so if you're not comfortable, and that's what I heard you say, Ashley, you didn't grow up with a lot of affection and you had to learn how to be affectionate. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
And so if it's something you have to practice, then take time to practice it. Now, I have 2 sons, and I would hug and kiss them all the time. I am a very affectionate person. My older brother Ben is here, and I grew up with Ben, my older brother, my younger brother Byron. They were not affectionate. I hugged everybody all the time, kissed everybody all the time, and because of it, I was able to let things out and receive things that helped me to become a better person. Practice it. Take steps toward it. Let's move to our next question. And this one comes from someone in the audience or from someone online. And if you are worshiping with us online, we welcome you. We're glad you're here. And you are also welcome to send in your questions. And either one of you could speak to this if you would. How would you deal with your child being distant or acting in certain ways due to depression?
I'll go. I'm actually dealing with that right now, but not for my actual child, but trying to help someone in my family get over that. I would say be patient, be understanding. If you are forceful, if you are nagging, I hate to use that word, you will push them away even more, and you can trigger their depression even more based off the pressure that you are applying to them, even though you're trying to help them. Just day by day, just, hey, how's your day? Sit down, talk with them. I sit at my table or in my household, I say, hey, we're going to have mental check-in. This is your safe space. It doesn't matter what they tell me. Aiden checked me the other day on myself, and I couldn't even get mad about it. I just had to say, you're right, son, you're right. So just if you are dealing with someone as a child in your house, create a safe space for them. Allow them to be able to talk to you without spazzing out, without going crazy over what they're telling you. Just listen to them. If they get to a point where they can trust you and open up to you, you have put in the groundwork to a start to getting them some help. They have to be able to trust you.
That's a good word. Let's give her a hand. That's a great word. Danny, would you like to speak to that at all?
But before, I want to piggyback off of what you said about the hugging. How many of you, when we first came back, when we opened the doors back, how many of you was it hard for y'all not to hug? Hug people through the coming through the door? That was so crazy. But like Pastor Brennan said, we were created to be in each other's presence, and we were created to touch each other in healthy ways. So I say that to say, like, if you do have a child who is going through that depression, make sure that you are making one a safe place, doing healthy touches, hugging them. They may not want to be hugged, but sometimes that's what they need. Phones, I know our kids get crazy when it comes to electronics. Sometimes they need to, sometimes that needs to be removed because they need to find other ways, healthy ways to express their emotions, to dive into their emotions. My whole thing is I always ask my daughter, how does that make you feel? And she tells me how she feels, and I think that's so important because we have to be able to verbalize our emotions. Our emotions, whether it's anger, whether it's happiness or joy or love, is not meant to stay in. We have to express those, and teaching your child how to express their emotions in a healthy way, in a safe place, and how to verbalize it, to really articulate their words, is going to help them in the long run.
That's an amazing answer. Let's give Danny a hand, everybody. I want to ask a question that comes from the audience, and it's a short question, but an important one. They ask, is depression a sin?
Oh no, depression is not a sin. It's not a sin. We all go through struggles. There's plenty of people in the Bible where you can tell, like, man, that person, yeah, they was depressed. You know, the prophet Elijah, I mean, he was definitely depressed. He sat under a tree and he literally wanted to die. If that's not a clear depiction of depression, I don't know what is. But in that, you see that it was like God wouldn't let him die. And as he started to look around and God was giving him these things, he started to realize his blessings. And that's what pulled him out of that hole. He started to see, okay, you know what? God's not going to let me die. And that was my thing when I was going through everything. I was like, you know what? I got to a point where I was like, he's just not going to let me die. I might as well just live, just live this life, see what God has for me, see the blessings. Where is this going to take me? And that's why you hear people say, hold on, just hold on a little bit longer, hold on a little bit, hold on one more minute or one more hour, whatever you have to do, hold on, because depression is real, and it's scary, especially when you're silent about it. So just hold on a little bit longer. Someone is going to be there. God's going to send you a sign. He's going to send somebody to talk to you. And when he does, I encourage all of y'all to take that opportunity just to let go and just tell someone how you're feeling. You just never know who God sent. There's angels all around us. You just never know who God sent to help you.
Thank you for that. I want to repeat what Danny said to that question. Is depression a sin? No, it's not. Depression is a medically diagnosed condition. And if you consider any other medical diagnosis a sin, then I guess you could call depression a sin. It's something that can be diagnosed and something that can be helped. It's something that can change. And we have to, and again, I'm going to use the title of our theme, we have to hold on to what, everybody? To what, everybody? You've got to hold on to hope. You've got to believe that God will indeed bring you through. Here's the next question. When you are at, and this is a personal question, when you're at your lowest point, what are your coping mechanisms to get you out of it? So what do you do when you're at your lowest to get you out of that low point?
I cry. I'm gonna be real.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait.
I cry. I ugly cry.
Then you do what?
I cry. Oh my goodness! Like I'm in there. I'm bawling. I'm snotting.
So you mean to tell me that crying is actually okay?
Crying is okay. Please cry. Get it out. Do you whatever. Roll on the ground. Get it out. I mean, y'all would be like, girl, what? well, okay, all right, I'll come back. But yeah, I cry because it's good for me, it's healthy for me. And then I get up and I pray. Pray gives me, and I know that sounds kind of cliche, but that's what I do. That's what helps me. It gives me peace. And then I get back to remembering my purpose and remember my why. Why am I pushing through these mental struggles that I'm having? And that's what, really that's what keeps me. I was actually misdiagnosed. And so the mental struggle was crazy. And I just can't remember. I was like, after all these years, I just kept pushing through. I was like, you know what? I have to do it. Because I know my purpose, I know my why, and I just have to keep pushing through. I have this thing called a thread ministry. I'm just holding on by a thread. And I just kept on holding on by a thread, and that's what kept me, that's why I'm here today. You have to push through. You have to find those things that make you, if it's eating, listen, eat. Just eat healthy stuff. I'm an emotional eater. How many of y'all are emotional eaters? I'm an emotional eater. I used to eat very bad when I went to those cravings. So instead of trying to avoid it, I just embraced it and changed what I was eating. So if I'm an emotional eater, I'm going for my fruits, my vegetables, and I'm going to eat. I'm going to eat healthy. So you have to find those things that make you feel good and just realize if you're consistent with it, then you need to keep doing. That's going to help you. Consistency is key when you're coping with your mental health issues.
And so you've heard from Danny how she copes with it. One of the things that she said that I want to reiterate is that don't hold things in. Let it out. It's healthy to get the toxic things that are in us outside of us. And so that may mean emoting, crying. It may mean expressing anger, not destructive anger, but anger, by the way, anger is not a sin either. The Bible says you can be angry without sinning. And so you may need to get that anger out in order for you to be whole and complete. One of the questions has to do with the kinds of symptoms that people experience when they are going through a low period or going through depression. I'm going to ask Winona, if she put on the screen, we have several slides that will give you some indication of how children may respond to grief or to depression, and how teenagers, and just leave that there for a moment, but we're going to show you a slide on children, we're going to show you a slide on teens, we're going to show you a slide on adults, and then a slide on the elderly. And I want you to take a moment just to look at what you see on the screen. Do you recognize some of these things in the children that you are in relationship with? Either your children that live in your home or children that you work with in the church or in the school, or children from your neighborhood. If you see those things, some of these signs are a combination of them. It may be an indication of the kinds of things that suggest this child may be dealing with depression. By the way, we often label children wrong. A child may act out in some way and we label them bad. When in reality, they're not bad. They're going through something. And to recognize what they're going through will help us to relate a little better to them. Let's go to the next slide related to teens. And I really want you to pay attention to this because as children get older, their bodies go through changes. Physically, bodies change. Chemically, bodies change. Thought processes begin to change. Rather than thinking as children do in concrete terms, teenagers begin to think in more abstract terms. They begin to develop their self-identity, and as a result, they begin to discover or define who they are. And when that's going on, you may notice some of the things that you see on the screen currently. If you see those things, you may need to take steps for intervention because that teenager may be dealing with depression. Let's go to the next slide as it relates to adults. And again, often we hesitate to say, I'm depressed. And by the way, none of us on the stage today can diagnose anyone in the audience with depression. Depression is a legitimate medical diagnosis. And even as a pastoral counselor, and soon Ashley will be a professional counselor, even as a pastoral counselor, it is not my role to diagnose or claim someone is depressed. But I can say that this person is showing signs of depression. And when they show signs of depression, it then would be my responsibility to get the kind of help that would determine whether or not it is, in fact, depression. And so as adults, we often don't think about what we're going through. We ignore it. We push it aside. We camouflage it. But if some of the descriptions you see on the screen are part of your experience, admit that's what it is. There's no shame in recognizing what your issue is. And I'm going to paint it on this canvas. Several years ago, I had a doctor's appointment, and they said that I potentially had cancer based on a lab test. Now, I could have sat there and said, well, that's just a lab test. It doesn't know anything. And went on about my life. And had I done that, I wouldn't be sitting on the stage right now. I would have died of cancer. Rather than doing that, I went the next step, and I had a biopsy. Biopsy confirmed that it was cancer. I didn't stop there. I went the next step, and I had treatment. And I went the next step and had more treatment. And because I did, I am cancer-free today. Somebody ought to shout hallelujah. If that is true for the diagnosis of cancer, it is also true for the diagnosis of depression. But if you hide from it, if you camouflage it, if you ignore it, if you turn your back on it, you won't get the help you need. And often we wait too late. And so if you notice things about yourself that are different, if you notice that your temper is a little shorter than it's normally been, if you notice your sleeping is being interrupted, if you notice that you're not eating like you normally do, either not eating at all or overeating, it could be that some of those symptoms are pointing out something going on in your life that could point to depression. Let's go to the next. Now, some people think all elderly people get depressed. You're just depressed because you're old. I want to tell you that that's not true, okay? Depression does not come with age. The elderly are more prone to being depressed, but it is not a part of the aging process. And so even if you are an older person that's listening to the panel discussion tonight, think about what you're experiencing and why, and recognize even as an older person, there is help for you. Isn't God good, everybody? Let's see, I think we have time for another question. It says here, I'm a woman, so I have experienced as a young woman, I've experienced depression as a young woman. But do signs of depression in young males differ from young women or teens? And how do we create a safe space for our sons? So I think the premise of this question is, does depression look different on young males as it does on young females? What do you think?
I would say it could, just because they deal with different things in different ways. Are we talking about a male or a female?
Well, they're asking, does depression look different on a male than it does on a female?
Yeah, I would say yes. I'm saying it can be the same depending on the type, like what they're depressed about, but it can be different as well. Because like I said, they men are looked at to be supposed to be like strong all the time, and women are looked at in this way and that way, how we generalize people, so it can be yes.
Yeah, have you ever heard someone say to a little boy, be a man, stop crying? And we prevent our boys from expressing their emotions. We teach girls to be nurturing and caring. They get baby dolls, they get little doll houses, they get tea sets. They learn nurturing, they learn, preparing food. But if a boy, play with a baby doll, oh, that's just anathema. That's the worst thing yet. And so often boys do camouflage early because they think it's weak, as Ashley has pointed out, or they think it's not manly. And we have to move away from that. It's important for us to to encourage and to support our children and to allow them a safe space to express exactly what they're feeling. Danny, I like what you do with your daughter, and I would encourage our audience to do this with your sons. Ask them how they feel and be patient with them giving a response, because one of the other questions is, what happens when your children don't talk to you? And a part of that is being patient with the process. Rather than being pushy, being patient and being kind, and allowing a safe space over time to give our boys and our girls permission to open up. Danny, would you like to speak to that, or any more, Ashley?
Oh, yeah. You said having a safe space for them, and how does it look? For each person, it is different. I express my emotions as far as depression is concerned differently from the next person. With men, it is a little bit, to me, not a little bit difficult because y'all hold so much in, because y'all have so much on, not that women don't, because, you know, we got a lot on our shoulders too. But men, I just want to encourage y'all to make sure you have a friend, and even women, you have a friend that you can just be, that you can just let go and talk. I have one of my guy friends, he said he has a friend who he calls and he just be like, you know what, can I cuss? Because you need a friend. I'm not saying, you know, go around cussing and all other stuff, but you need somebody where you can be completely transparent with. That's healthy for you. That's healthy mentally. So for men, you know, have that friend that you can be open with, that you can be transparent with, someone who's going to help you. And sometimes you don't need an answer. Sometimes you just need somebody just to listen to you. So you can just talk your way through your problems, hear yourself say it. The first step is always acknowledgement. For our children, there are things that they won't tell you. I mentor girls, and there's things that they tell me, and oh my goodness, my ears are bleeding, but you know, I let them talk because they need that. And if it's something super, super serious, I'll let their parents go. But one thing that our team ministry has, we just stood up our mental health Saturday. So kids come and they can talk. That's their safe place. And then we also have a Zoom call. And the last Zoom call was amazing. The kids were interactive. They were talking. They were sharing. And so if you feel like your kid isn't talking to you, you know, have them come to our mental health Saturdays. Have them join our Zooms, because they do need to talk. They need that outlet.
When Danny was talking, it reminded me of a song. I was looking at Lamar because I was going to ask him to play it, but we all need somebody to lean on. Now, this is as far as I'm going to go, because I'm no Nate. But Danny's point is so true. We all need somebody to lean on. And Danny's right. You know, we often camouflage or pretend, or in New Orleans, you know, it's Mardi Gras season right now, and during Mardi Gras, people masquerade. They put on costumes and masks, and you don't know who you're dealing with. And that can be problematic when you are dealing with the kinds of things we're talking about tonight. People have to be free to be who they are, to be their authentic self. And so if I'm limping, I'm going to limp. If I'm crawling, I'm going to crawl. If I'm sunk down, what's that movie? If I'm in the sunken place, I'm in the sunken place, all right? And so if I've got somebody to lean on who recognizes I am where I am, you know what they're going to do? They're going to be down crawling with me. They're going to be limping with me. They're going to be sitting in the sunken place with me. They're going to be with me until I get out of it. I want to say this, and I hadn't planned to, but standing outside greeting tonight, there was a gentleman, and I really don't know him, but I'm going to get to know him. I asked him, how was your week? You know, and he said, it was a good week. He said, how are you? I said, I'm strong. He said, I'm strong too. And I said, that's why we come. He said, yeah, we come here to be strong, but we got to be strong when we're not here. And when I heard him say that, I looked at Pastor Ware and I said, we got to know who this brother is, because it's true. It's not just when we get together on Saturday night. We need one another all week long. So what do I do when it's Wednesday and I'm struggling? Do I have to wait till Saturday? Or will I have somebody from the community of faith that I can lean on, somebody that I can call on, somebody that's there for me? That's what we need. And if we're willing to give that, we're going to save even more lives. Yes, indeed. We all need somebody to lean on. Here's my last question. Yes.
I want to interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just want to say that if your child will not talk to you, surround your kid with a good village. They will open up to that village. I witnessed it personally with some things that was going on. Not that he didn't want to tell me because of my reaction towards the person, but that was valid. But I have a good village around my child. I know that I can't do it on my own. And he will open up, he will talk to them, and that they'll tell me all the time, like, hey, I talked to Aiden, and I'm like, okay, anything I need to know? They'll be like, nah, he good. We just talked to him and stuff like that. If you surround your child with a good village and you let them know, like, if my child is in danger, let me know. But if they can trust other people outside of you, it'll make them look at you different too and gain your trust as well.
Amen. What a good word, everybody. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to piggyback, you can't be everything to your child. Be mom or be dad. I've tried it. I try to be mom. I try to be counselor, life coach, and I realize I can't do it. My child needs her mom. Your child needs their mom. They get with a counselor, get with a friend, like she said, the village, but choose one and do that, because your child does need just the mom. They need just their dad, and then they can have the village and a counselor and a therapist. That
makes a lot of sense. Surround your children with a village. Don't be everything to try to be all things to your child. I want to ask another question, and this comes from, there were several people who asked this, and it has to do with how do you deal with losing to death someone you love, and especially if it's a sudden kind of thing. And one person made reference to the death of a child. Another person made reference to the death of someone other than a child, an adult, but it happened rather suddenly. How does one deal with that kind of experience?
That's rough. That's rough. I lost my grandmother, and man, my grandmother was everything to me. The only good thing I gained from losing her in that moment is I was able to be there until her last breath. And I didn't grieve her at first. I'm saying, I think it took me about 4 weeks, and I cried for about 3 months. And it was horrible. It was a bad feeling. It hurt. I was sad. I used to say, man, if I lost my grandma, I don't know how I would be here. And you just I had to start playing some of the things she used to tell me, because I would have these conversations with her. She'd be like, Ashley, you gotta live your life. You have a purpose in life. God is gonna get you through it. And that was the only thing that really got me through it. It wasn't a person, it wasn't a place, it wasn't anything. It was the fact that I replayed our conversations. I understood that me not being here was not gonna make anything any better. So I had to focus. I had to know why I was here, my purpose. I have, my nieces, nephews, my son, my family that depended on me. And I just stepped up. And it took, like I said, it took me a while to get myself together. And like now, I do things I know that I would want my grandmother, like that my grandmother would want me to do. I'm here now knowing that I'm making her proud. So if you're struggling with grief, I would tell you, like, just don't rush the process. Don't think that 2 years from now you won't see something and just start crying. Like, it's a song can come on the radio that I might hear that I played with her, and I just might cry, and that's okay. Grief is a long process. It is not easy. Don't pressure yourself to feel that you have to be okay right now and that you have to be okay later. You might not ever be okay, but you just need to make sure that you remember why you're here and your purpose.
The other thing, and thank you, Ashley, for that response. The other thing I would say, in addition to what Ashley has offered, is that you may need to talk with someone. And it's okay if you do. And I want to say this, particularly people of color, we often have a hard time going to counseling and sharing our burden with someone else. But if I had a heavy load to carry and I had two people helping me carry that load to be lighter on me, that's a physical load. It's true as well for an emotional load. And so I'm going to ask, if you put up on the screen, we have a list of resources that you may want to jot some of these down. I'm going to ask that you put that up and leave it up just for a little while so that individuals who would want to have it, you can jot these down. But don't be ashamed or afraid to talk to people. At our hospital, AU Health, we run a grief support group every Monday at 12 noon. It's a group. And it's a group of people who have lost someone to death or have had some significant health change, and they're grieving that process. And that group has helped to support and encourage large numbers of people over a number of years. Currently, the group meets as I mentioned, every Monday at 12 noon, and then every last Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. And right now, the group is meeting virtually. And so you could be a part of that group just by logging onto your computer or onto your smart device. But I mention that simply to say, if you need help, get help. You don't have to go this alone. And one of the things the devil does is he tries to isolate us so that he can destroy us. I was watching on the Animal Network the other day, this water buffalo. And the water buffalo had separated from the herd. And the water buffalo was out there by itself. And this pride of lions showed up. And one jumped on its back. Another grabbed its leg. And before you knew it, the water buffalo was on the ground and 7 or 8 lions were feasting on it. You know why that water buffalo became a meal? He had been isolated from the group. Now, I saw another video where this water buffalo was being attacked, and the herd turned around and came back. And when the herd came back, the lions saw the number of water buffalo and decided not a good time to eat. The devil seeks to isolate us. He wants you by yourself. He wants you alone. He wants you to think that nobody's with you. He wants you to believe that you are lower than the low. But you are more than that. You are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. Who are you? You are the one that God went to Calvary for and died. And this is what he said. Believe this when I say it. If you had been the only one to have sinned, he would have died just for you. You are valuable. And so don't isolate, don't isolate, don't isolate, don't isolate. Don't isolate yourself. Use the resources. When I moved here in 1994, it was because of adversity in my life, because I had made some terrible mistakes. The reason I made the mistakes I made was because I thought I was all that. But I wasn't. I thought it. And so when the bottom fell out and I moved here to Georgia, I thought I had to be by myself. So I tried to negotiate life by myself. But God began to show me, Brennan, if you just join hands with the right people, I will make you stronger. I will make you better. And I will take you from where you are and I will lift you up to where you need to be. And I pastored churches. I've been parts of communities. But God kept saying to me, you need something better. You need something more efficient in your life. And it was at a My Brother's Keepers conference that I was speaking at, that our lead pastor was speaking at, and we partnered together. First time I ever met the man, and he said, we meet on Saturdays. I said, Saturdays? I said, I go to church on Saturdays. And so I started coming to church. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't impressed initially with anything but the word. The word was good. But then I started meeting people. I met Nate. I never forget the first time I laid eyes on you, man. I said, that's a big boy there. That's what I said. And then he opened his mouth and I said, that big boy can sing. And then I got to know him and I said, that big boy can love on a person. And he has loved me good. And he prays for me. And I don't talk to Nate every day, but I know he prays for me. And then I found a brother who had embraced me before I even knew he was at Chosen, but he laid hands on me, selected me to pray for him at one of his poetry events. Salmon and grits, sleepy eyes caught her. And then I found out he was at Chosen, and I'm like, man, it's Sleepy's here. This place got to be legit. Because he started loving on me before I started coming to Chosen. Cook food, indeed. And then, Lord, I met Camilla. A lot of y'all met Camilla, and that's why y'all here. This is what I'm saying to you. I want you to hear this good. The reason God kept me is because I have a community. Because I get sad, I do get depressed. And I think, even as a man of God, even as a minister, I think, how can God use me? Why would he use me? I don't deserve it. But God put me in a community to build me up. And there are times when I'm sad and I don't want to come. I don't want to come. But God says, go, boy, go. And I walk through those doors, and sometimes it's the message. Sometimes it's the song. But always it's somebody coming up to me and hugging me. Somebody coming up to me and saying, Pastor B, you look good today. Somebody coming up to me and saying, that Wednesday word made a difference in my life, and it builds me up, and I find encouragement. And I just want you to know that God will do the same thing for you. You got to hold on to hope. Ephesians chapter 6, the Bible says that the devil is making war against you.
That's right. That's right.
Against you. He wants to take you out because God has a purpose for your life. That's another thing I love about Chosen. Chosen is built on helping people discover their purpose. If you were born in this world, it is only because God has purpose for your life. There is purpose for your life. There is purpose for your life. But the devil doesn't want you to realize your purpose. And so he tries to rob you of it. And he starts from the time we are children. If you read in Exodus and again in Matthew, you'll find that that the devil rather understood that Moses would have a massive purpose and Jesus would have a massive purpose. And so you know what the devil did? He tried to take them out when they were children. Anytime the devil recognizes the power in a person to tear down his kingdom, he comes after you. So I want to say this to you. If you have experiences of depression, if there are certain problems in your life, if there are things that make you think I'm not worthy or I'm not right, that's the devil attacking your purpose. That's the devil trying to stop you. And that's why some of the habits we have, they start from young. That's why, parents, it's important for us to monitor our children, to have conversations with our children, to do things with our children. We put too much emphasis on working and making money and not enough interest on spending time with our children. To sit down at I called Ashley, I texted Ashley about meeting to prepare for tonight. And I said, what about 7 o'clock? And this is what Ashley said to me. She said, Pastor B, at 7 o'clock, I'm having dinner with my family. To which I said, we're not meeting at 7 o'clock. Because she's going to sit down with a family and have a meal at 7 o'clock. Her family knows at 7 o'clock, that's the time we gather together. The TV is off, the radio is off, the music is down, and we're having conversations. How'd your day go? What did you deal with? What made you happy today? What stressed you out today? How can I help you? How do you want to help me? We've got to have those kinds of conversations with our children from the time they are young. Why? Because the devil is attacking. He starts, and Unique has made this very clear throughout the month. He starts with attacking our self-image. Yeah, young people. So you don't have the clothes that the other young folk have, and you feel bad about yourself. Or you aren't as tall as you want to be, or as slim as you want to be, or as cute as you want to be, or as handsome as you want to be, and you start feeling bad about yourself. That's the devil trying to attack you. He attacks your self-image. But he doesn't just stop there. He attacks your body and your sexuality. And that's why I'm thankful that this church has the Let's Talk About Sex conference. Most churches aren't talking about it. I told somebody earlier today, this was my sex talk growing up. My mama said to my brothers and I, don't y'all get nobody pregnant. Because if you do, you better pack your bags and meet them at the gate. That was my sex talk. Now, do you think that, now I love my mom and dad, but do you think that helped me? And one day I came home crying and I said to my brothers, I said, I gotta go to the gate. That doesn't work. Not only does it not work, it scars us. And we carry those scars through life. It negatively impacts our relationships, even in our marriage. But I want you to hold on to hope, because God can heal it. God can change that. The devil attacks us with influence. Go to the next slide if you would. He attacks us beyond that. He attacks our purpose, and he attacks our money. He comes after all of that because he doesn't want you to have anything. But I want you to know that there is an answer to all those attacks. There's an answer to it. Put it up on the screen for our worshipers tonight. Here it is. Here's the answers to all those attacks. You can fight. You can what? You can what? Come on now. You can what? Yes. Hey, I guess you don't want to fight, but I'm fighting for mine. I'm fighting for mine. My brother Ben is here, and I remember I was just a little boy, and somebody on the block took my bike, and I watched them walk away with my bike, and I just stood there crying. And Ben was like, "What you crying for?" "They took my bike, they took my bike." And my big brother went down the street, and he fought for my bike. And he brought my bike back. And ain't nobody ever took my bike again. Because somebody fought for me. Why am I telling you that? Because sometimes our children can't fight for themselves. You got to fight for them. We've got to fight. Secondly, we've got to take every thought captive. Because you're going to have negative thoughts. Tonight I had one. And I went right to the cross. And I put it in the hands of God through prayer. And while Pastor Ware was praying for me, I was saying, God, take this thought, wrap it up, bind it up, and take it away. If you have a thought that tells you you're not worthy, you tell that thought, I bind you in the name of Jesus. I am worthy through the blood of the Lamb. If you have a thought that says you deserve to die, bind that thought and say, no, Christ has come that I might have life and life more abundantly. Take every thought captive. What can you do? Correct your mistakes. One of the things that hurt our children is when we are too big to admit we were wrong. So my sons and I were in New Orleans walking through the Riverwalk, and there was a store that had samples of crackers and hot sauces. And I said to my boys, I said, don't mess with that. So they didn't mess with it going one way, but coming back, my youngest son, he got a cracker with some hot sauce. And when he ate it, the sauce was so hot, he started crying. And he came to me and he said, Daddy, it's hot. And I looked at my son and I said, I told you not to take it. And I kept walking. Years later, because at that time he was maybe 6 or 7. Years later, he's a teenager now. He said to me, he said, Daddy, I don't trust you. I said, what do you mean you don't trust me? He said, that day, and he took me all the way back. When I needed you, you walked away from me. He said, and I've never forgotten that. He carried that all that time. But his gift to me was that he told me. And I apologized to my son because he did need me. And I thought, that's not how God treats me. When I do wrong, God doesn't turn his back on me and walk away. He comes to me and he takes care of me. And I know sometimes our children do wrong, but that's not the time to turn our backs and walk away from them. If we want to gain their trust, we have to admit that we have issues too. We have problems too. We've been where you are. Some of us have forgotten. We've forgotten. Correct the mistakes that you've made. And then finally keep moving to Jesus. Mary and Joseph were good parents. They wouldn't have been the parents of Jesus had they not been good. You find this in Luke chapter 2. But although good parents, they lost Jesus. They lost him. So I'm not saying you're a bad parent if you make a mistake, because good parents make mistakes. But this is what they did when they realized that Jesus was not with them. They turned around and they went back to get him. And if you're going to get through depression, if you're going to get through emotional trauma, if you're going to get through the low points of life, go back to where you found Jesus. Go back to where Jesus is. Find your way to the feet of Jesus, because whatever problem you have, Jesus is able. I said Jesus is able. Do you hear me? He's able to fix that situation. Come back, come back. Come back, come back, come back, come back, come back, come back to Jesus. And this is Jesus. He'll never turn you away. He'll never disappoint you. He'll never let you down.